Hello everybody, I am here to report on our reflections about the whole group process. I was fortunate to be in a group with Roland and Susan, and I was fortunate for a bunch of different reasons. And this little reflection I'm talking about has been done in conjunction with Roland and Susan, and I interviewed them, and this is what I came up with. The first thing I really enjoyed that I thought was a really good example of best practices in group presentation and group working was that we were sharing information. We were delving into things that were very, very relevant to us and personal to us. Roland would share insight into one of his favorite teachers that he had. Susan would be talking about the value of humor and posting articles. She would post an article on humor. I would post an article on fun. We were sharing resources as a group. So that's one for the best practice, the sharing of resources. And the resources that Susan had shared with me, I ended up sharing with the colleagues in my own department. That was wonderful. The second thing is humor. Right off the bat, as soon as we got introduced with each other in our small group, Roland cracked a joke and we all started laughing. That sort of diffused the nervousness. That sort of focused us onto the task at hand, and it helped us make us feel comfortable. Susan cracked jokes, I cracked jokes, we laughed and we talked. It just opened us up. Which then leads me into my third thing I thought was really, really interesting was we were very curious. We were very curious about the questions at hand. We were very curious about how to connect this to a wider picture, a wider sort of look at how we do group work within our own classrooms. And with that curiosity and with that humor and with that sort of willingness to share information, we were also very honest. I think honesty is really key to really good group dynamics and group work. When we threw around the whole thing, I think the first question was, how are we going to deal with conflict, right? And we all just sort of looked at each other online. We went, well, we'll just tell the person. We'll just voice our concern and just talk as regular old people. The last one, I think, is the most important part about group work and best practice in group work, is about creating a group with unique individuals that share their gifts and strengths in the group. A wide variety of gifts and strengths. So let me break down our group from what I saw our group. Susan is Indigenous. She comes from an Indigenous tradition. She uses Indigenous wisdom within her class. She was our knowledge keeper. She was our gatekeeper for information and directed us in places of where we could go a little bit further and explore a little bit further. So she was our knowledge keeper. Roland was amazing to me because Roland is one of the most honest people I've ever met in my life. And Roland was honest about his limited information and limited knowledge about Indigenous perspectives. He was honest about how uncomfortable he was. In fact, he said he was uncomfortable with he hasn't done the work in this, which he thinks he should have. So he felt very uncomfortable to be called upon, and especially to be called upon in a group with someone who was Indigenous. But Roland asked the right questions. Roland was very, very curious about what he didn't know. Roland asked questions that I have never asked. And Roland's questions opened up doors of understanding for all of us to explore a little bit further. And then with myself, I've had a long tradition of working in Indigenous communities. I have also had a long tradition of working in groups in the sense of musicians and being in bands and understanding we all bring something unique to the orchestra. And the more unique the instrument, the more unique the song. I will say what was funny, and I'm just going to go back to Roland just before I move on, but go back to Roland. Can you imagine this guy? feels uncomfortable about his sort of knowledge skills, and he's with an Indigenous person and this other know-it-all white guy. But Roland's questions cut through all of that. So in a nutshell, I think it's important, and why our group works so well, was you have to have opportunities for people to share information and share their passions, Susan's humor, and my look at fun. You have to have a place where we can be honest with each other, where we can be curious about the subject. We were curious about the question. And the most important thing, to me at least, was that you have a place that allows all the gifts to be realized. A group that functions the best is a group that realizes everybody has a strength, and all of that strength is only going to make our presentation and work stronger. That is the key to a successful group.